guys, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video you are watching part 2 of my gastroparesis story. So if you didn't watch part 1 yet, go watch that first, because I think this one's going to be confusing if you didn't watch part 1. So brief synopsis, part 1 was about what gastroparesis is and my story leading up to when I was diagnosed, because there was quite a long period where I wasn't diagnosed, and that encompasses kind of all the symptoms and tests that I went through to get diagnosed. So now what you're watching is me starting my first medication for gastroparesis, and this will lead up to my surgery. So I hope you enjoy, and once again, links with helpful sites will be down below, and I will also include timestamps down here as well, so you can jump to any part of the story that you want to hear. So let's get on into the video. I'm sorry if it kind of just jumps to a random point, but like I said, I wasn't planning on splitting this up, so I kind of just cut myself off. So like I said, I just finished getting diagnosed and I am starting azithromycin. So let's get started. I took my first dose of azithromycin the next morning and I took it. It wasn't bad, it was just normal medicine. But then after the 3 doses, so at night, I remember coming home from school not feeling good. I was starting to get super nauseous again, and that night I was so nauseous and I was like, oh, this is supposed to be helping me, I'm supposed to be okay, and it wasn't. And so that whole night, I just sat up over a trash can and I could not sleep. And I had clinical the next morning and I was like, I don't want to miss clinical. I can't miss clinical. I can't do it. This is my last clinical of this semester. I need to make it through. But I was sitting through over the trash can and I literally I remember not sleeping at all that night. I stayed up all night because I couldn't sleep because of the nausea. And I obviously had to tell my instructor I was not going, so I missed my last day of clinical for that day because of the medication. So I stopped taking the medication because it was making me worse. It wasn't helping me get any more food in. It wasn't helping make me feel better. So I was like, okay, great, there's one medication I already can't take. But like I said, that was my experience, but some people I know, azithromycin helps them. So don't completely rule it out based on what I felt. That was just my personal reaction to it. So the next option was to go to domperidone. And like I said, it's not available in the US, so you have to get it through Canada, like a Canadian pharmacy. And my doctor didn't want to prescribe Reglan for me, and I already knew going into it because I was actually in pharmacology class this semester, so I knew what Reglan was and I learned about all the side effects, and I was like, even if he prescribes that for me or suggests that I take it, I'm not going to take it because I know the risks. So he didn't even suggest that for me, which I wasn't going to take it anyways. So Reglan was out, azithromycin was out. Now I was moving on to domperidone. He wrote me a prescription and then he told me where to get it. So I had to call the Canadian pharmacy and order it, and it really wasn't expensive at all. I can't complain because you're not allowed to use your insurance, obviously, but it was like, for me, it was, I believe, around $65 for about a month and a half or 2 months supply. Ended up taking like 2 weeks to get here, which is super fast. They told me a month, but it actually took 2 weeks. After 2 weeks of waiting, I got my domperidone and I started on that. While I was waiting, so something that I did want to mention was before I got my domperidone, I was still in nursing school, going through exams, lectures, stuff like that. And I think maybe about a week after my diagnosis, I hit that wall where it's like, oh my God, I have a condition that does not have a cure. This is my life. I'm gonna feel like this for the rest of my life. And I remember standing in the shower and I just lost it. I started bawling and I was like, how am I supposed to be a good nurse? How am I supposed to be a good mother? How am I gonna be a good wife? What am I gonna do with my life? Am I gonna be able to travel? Am I gonna be able to do fun things anymore? Or is my life just gonna be spent in bed? And I was just distraught. I felt like I was losing my identity. I used to have all this energy. I used to love school. I used to love learning and going to water parks, amusement parks, just doing everything that I possibly could. I used to have so much energy. I used to dance, I used to cheer, I used to do all of this stuff. And then this disease hit and I felt like all of that was gone. I wasn't the same person anymore. And between that, the stress of nursing school, not finding medications, not feeling okay, it was just a lot. But the one thing that stayed the same throughout this entire process, once again, was my boyfriend. He did absolutely everything he could for me. Shortly after my diagnosis, it was around Easter, so he made an Easter hunt where he hid baskets and boxes around my house, and they had GP friendly foods in them, so I had to go out and find them, and that was the sweetest thing ever. I think I have a picture that I can insert of everything that he got me, but it was just like one of the sweetest things, and he was just always there for me, always trying to understand what I was going through. And I'm probably going to say this multiple times throughout this video, but I wouldn't be as positive and where I am today without him. One thing that I want to recommend is that, and I know not everyone has this privilege, but is to find someone that can be your advocate, that can be your biggest support system, even if it isn't a family member or friend. I know there's a lot of people out there who have similar issues and chronic illnesses and stuff like that, and maybe to reach out to someone like that just to like vent to and get advice from, because this is an awful thing to go through, and to go through it alone is, I feel like, nearly impossible. So back to the story. After 2 weeks of ordering the domperidone, I started that. When I took that, it actually started going pretty well. I started to notice improvements, and I started on, I can't remember the milligram, but I started on the lowest dose. So I'd take, let's say it was 1 milligram 3 times daily, and it was actually going pretty well. I still had the baseline nausea, I was still lower weight, I still wasn't eating much, and at this point I started to get bloated. I'm really bloated tonight, and it is very, very uncomfortable. Like it is so bad. And that was kind of new for me. I was like, why am I starting to bloat now? I didn't fully understand that, but I also had that symptom to deal with. I mentioned in the beginning of the video, one of the tests that they do is an upper GI study and barium swallow. I can't remember the exact name of the test, but you swallow barium, watch it go through your stomach to make sure there's no obstructions. So I had that. Let me tell you, that was not a fun experience at all. One of the things they did was a swallow study to check the motility of your esophagus as well. Oh my god. I'll just let you know briefly my experience with this. So for that, you had to take this pill that put a lot of gas in your esophagus, so it would open it up so they could see if there was any like strictures or blockages and stuff like that, and then you had to drink something so they could watch it go through. And they were like, oh, take this pill, it's gonna cause you to, you know, feel a little air bubbly in your throat, but just don't burp, okay? And then you'll be fine. You just can't burp. And I was like, okay, easy. It was not easy. And plus, I was nauseous this day. That just made it worse. And so I took the thing and I was like, oh my god. There were tears running down my eyes because it was so hard not to burp. I never knew how difficult it was not to burp when they fill up your esophagus with air. And then you had to swallow something. And this went on for like 5 minutes and I could not burp, and I was nauseous and I was crying. And I made it through though. I did not burp. And then when the test is over, they allowed you to burp, so I did. And then they come out with like this giant cup, like this big, and they're like, you have to drink all of this barium. And I was like, do you know who you're dealing with here? Like, my stomach does not empty, and I'm nauseous. I need to drink all that. They're like, yep. And I was like, okay. I'm like, give me a straw, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to drink it is through a straw. So I sucked it down, and they took a scan, and then they were like, okay, go outside and walk so you can get that barium through your small intestine. Because I was not allowed to leave until the barium made it to my colon. And with my stomach, does not empty. So to speed it up, they wanted me to walk to help get it through. So I walked constantly, and the office was very small. So I had to walk in circles, and like I was in a gown, and there were people like just in the waiting room. So I just had to completely walk. And I remember like I was watching Netflix as I was walking down the hall, and they'd scan me every like 20-30 minutes to see if it made it. And it was not going. Eventually, I think after 2.5 hours of walking, they're like, oh, it made it to your colon finally. I was like, oh, thank God, I can leave now. I made it through, and there were no obstructions, so it was for sure gastroparesis because there was no obstructions. My stomach was just delayed for some unknown reason. And I made it through school that semester. I made it through another semester of nursing school. And in May, me and my family decided to go see another GI, because my GI that I had initially went to, he was good. He was a very, very nice guy. I just didn't feel like I was getting enough care about my gastroparesis. With my gastroparesis, I just feel like it was like, oh, okay, here's some meds, try it, and that's it. And I wanted to have other options. I wanted someone who understood more about gastroparesis. So my family found one that we thought was good. So we went to him. He was like, oh yeah, like I deal with hundreds of gastroparesis patients. yeah, we got you. And at this point, I went there. He seemed nice. Everything was okay because I was doing pretty good on domperidone at this point. I gained almost all of my weight back. I remember I was almost back to my original weight over the summer, and I was doing pretty good. So the doctor's appointment was fine. This doctor was 2 hours away from where I was from, and it was good. So we went home. I was pretty good for the summer. One side effect that I'm going to talk about domperidone that I did not enjoy was it caused me to lactate. And I know it causes other people to lactate too. But that was a unpleasant surprise. Yeah. So I remember it happened after, because I ended up going up on the dose on domperidone because it didn't seem to be helping as much. And after I went up on the dose, I started to lactate whenever my period would come, like a lot. So I actually had to wear like nursing pads because it would leak through like my bras and stuff like that. And I'm like, oh my god, like nope, this is a nightmare. I do not want to be lactating, like no thanks. And towards the end of summer in August, I had a follow-up appointment with the doctor that was 2 hours away. And at this point I was starting to get pretty sick again and nauseous, and nothing was helping. So I went back to him and I told him, hey, I need something else. This isn't working. I'm still really sick. I can't eat much. I'm starting to get tired. I'm starting to get weak. I'm losing weight. I'm nauseous. I'm miserable. And now I'm constipated too. He was like, okay, you should be fine because you're taking medication. I was like, excuse me? But he was like, okay, I'll give you another medication. And he gives me Bacterial. Never heard of it. I just took it anyways because I'm like, well, he's a doctor. He deals with hundreds of gastroparesis patients, so I should listen to him. So I started taking that, and he referred me to another doctor at another hospital. And he was like, go see this doctor because he may be able to do like surgical interventions for you if needed to. So just go meet with him because he was a motility specialist. But overall, this doctor's appointment in August was awful. We wanted to know more about gastroparesis. Me and my boyfriend, mostly my boyfriend, was researching on gastroparesis. We wanted to figure out why this was happening, because if we figure out why it was happening, then we can treat what caused my gastroparesis and not just the symptoms. Because if you treat the symptoms, the gastroparesis is still there, you know? And eventually your symptoms may not be able to be controlled. So you need to find the cause of gastroparesis. And like they said, they just told me I was idiopathic. They're like, we don't know what caused your gastroparesis. There's nothing we can do about it, is what I kept hearing. So I want to explain myself a little bit better here. So treating the cause mostly applies to those who have idiopathic. I mean, it may apply to you as well if you don't have idiopathic, and there is a way to treat the cause of your gastroparesis. But what I was trying to say is that they just labeled mine as idiopathic, which means they don't know what caused my gastroparesis, but there was something. So what I was trying to say was that if we could find that something that was causing my gastroparesis, and that there was a possibility that that something could be treated. So that's why we wanted to find that something and not just treat the symptoms and pretend like the cause wasn't there. There may be a cause to your gastroparesis that's permanent and you can't necessarily fix it. I'm really sorry about that. But in my case, I just kind of wanted to explain that there was a cause, and while it wasn't identified, there could be a possible way to fix it. So that's why I wanted to try to find it. But if there is no way to treat the cause, then yes, managing symptoms is really important because that is how you are going to get through your day-to-day life. This was a doctor, and he refused to answer my boyfriend's questions, and we weren't being rude about it. Like, we were just like, hey, like, okay, what causes it? And he's like, I don't know, it's idiopathic. We're like, okay, well, we've been doing some research, and it looks like, is there any way like hormones could be involved? Is there any way we can figure out if like she had nerve damage at some point? And they just kept saying, nope, idiopathic, blah blah blah, you should be fine. And he just got up and left, and I was like, okay. So my goal was not to come off as rude or to act like I knew more than the doctor. It's just, if you have been in a similar situation, I feel like you understand. But I just felt like I was so sick and no one was helping me, and I just didn't know what to do, and I was desperate, and I was trying to just get any answers that I could at the actual doctor's office. Like, I wasn't rude, I was just simply trying to ask questions and stuff like that. But yeah, so I may have like sounded like I was being rude, but like, I promise I wasn't. Sometimes you have to kind of be strong and stand up for yourself because, like I said, you're dealing with your health here. It's important that you advocate for yourself. So that is what I was doing here, and yeah, so not trying to be rude.
Left that completely defeated, but like I said, we were going to another doctor. He referred us to one of his other doctors. So I went back home upset, but tried the new medication. Did not work. But then I was researching again.
So whenever I mention research in this video, I mean like actual research. Like I read medical journals, I read research studies, I went on medical websites. It's important that you don't just take things as is and that you do research yourself as well to help you understand more about what's going on with you. Or let's say it's a family member that you are close with that is dealing with an illness like this. It's important that you learn more about it so you can better help yourself or your family. I'm not saying to like take that in place of what you are getting in the medical community or what doctors and nurses are saying, but I'm saying that as like a supplemental thing that you should do to best help yourself. So like I'm not trying to say do your own research and assume that that's right and to disregard everything that your doctor or whatever is saying. Just don't take things as is.
And I discovered something called SIBO, which is small intestine bacteria overgrowth, which can kind of go along with gastroparesis. So I saw that and I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get tested for that because one of the main symptoms of that is bloating and fullness. And like I said, I noticed that was a newer symptom. I didn't always have that, so I was like, okay, maybe this is making my gastroparesis worse. I'm like, maybe SIBO is what is causing me to have worse symptoms than I did before. Maybe if I treat this, my symptoms will be more manageable, my domperidone will work, and I'll be okay. So I called them up and they ordered me the SIBO test to take at home. Took that, sent that in. That whole process took way longer than it should, but it ended up coming back positive. So I was put on an antibiotic for that, and I did notice like a huge improvement in bloating, but I was still really nauseous. And I feel like I sound like a broken record, but I was nauseous. That's the end of the story. I was losing weight, I wasn't eating much, and at this point around my SIBO time, which was, I honestly can't remember when it was, I think it was in September, maybe beginning of October, I was eating once every 24 hours. That's it. And when I ate that one time, I'd be maybe 200 to 500 calories, and that's it.
So this right here is a perfect example of why I was so desperate. The way I was living was not healthy at all, and if I did not get help, if I did not advocate for myself, if I did not research, I honestly don't know where I would have been right now. The way I was living was so unhealthy and dangerous for my body that if I did not stand up for myself, like I said, I don't know what would happen or where I would be today.
And this is where the downfall really started to begin. My fall semester of my senior year of nursing school. And like I said, once every 24 hours for the longest time. And while dealing with the demands nursing school called for and doing clinicals, and I was still working at Kohl's on Saturdays. So like 12-hour shifts and between 6 to 7 hour shifts at Kohl's where I was on the floor. So I ran around the floor, putting clothes away, helping customers. I was very active. Sometimes I'd walk like 8 miles during a shift at work. And then obviously you're standing all day at clinicals, and then school, going to lectures, taking tests, stuff like that. My body was doing so much, but I was only feeding it 200 to 500 calories a day. October 19th, I went to that new doctor I was talking to you about that I was referred to. This one was even worse. So we went to him. I'm not gonna get too much into it because I feel like everyone has had bad experience with doctors, but he would not listen to me. He said I should be fine and that if the medications aren't working, that means I don't have gastroparesis because the medication should be working. And he was like, we're gonna do more tests, but they were the same tests I already have. He's like, we're gonna test you for celiac. I'm like, I've already been tested for celiac twice. I don't have it. He's like, we're gonna have you do another gastric emptying scan, but at my facility. And I was like, but I just had one in April and it's October. So that's 6 months. Like, I just had one 6 months ago.
I just want to say, please excuse my extreme sassiness in these next clips. Obviously, I still have some built up like emotions and resentment in me from these doctor's appointments, but they were a very unpleasant experience for me. And I just felt like I was so close to dying and this doctor did not care. He did not listen. He didn't believe me. And as I said in the previous clips, I was only eating once every 24 to 36 hours and I was doing full activity and I was just depleting my body, and he just acted like he didn't care, and he didn't understand that I was literally like dying and that my body was starving, but I wasn't hungry, so I couldn't eat. And all he wanted to do was order tests that I already had and that came back negative and that weren't going to change the positive, and to repeat a same test to see if I still had gastroparesis. But obviously, like, I need to move past it a little bit more, so I just wanted to apologize for my tone of voice in here. But it was rough, and it was a very rough time, and yeah, I was dying, and he didn't care, and he didn't do what he needed to do. So that is why I'm not saying all doctors are like this and that you should just say no doctors, they're all bad. This is just one experience that I had that was not good, so I just wanted to share that. That's all.
And he was like, do you take drugs? And I was like, no, I don't take drugs. And then he had me drug tested as well. So he tested me for drugs, he tested me for celiacs again, he tested me for my thyroid, stuff like that. Everything that I already told him was normal multiple times. Like, I've gotten these tests like 3 times at least. Everything was normal, but he didn't believe me. He could see the test too because my records were sent to him. And at this point, I was starting to look into going to another doctor that I found in a gastroparesis support group that I joined on Facebook. Everyone talked about this doctor that only does gastroparesis. You can only get into him if you have a positive gastric emptying scan. I started looking at him, but the reason I delayed for so long was because this doctor is in Ohio, and I just personally felt like I wasn't severe enough. I kind of diminished a lot of my symptoms, a lot of what I was going through. I didn't feel like I was significant enough, and I don't want you guys to think your symptoms and what you're going through is not significant enough either, because that, I feel like, is what held me back a lot in getting better treatment to begin with, is because I felt like what I was going through wasn't important enough. I felt like there were people worse than me, which there were a lot of people worse off from me, but I kind of put that on myself and didn't think I was deserving of care. So that's why I put it off for so long. But at this point, I was looking into going to this doctor in Ohio because I was not eating. Like I said, once every 24 hours. I think the longest time I went was like almost 36 hours without eating because I couldn't. And things were getting bad. And I asked this doctor because I saw that they did something called the smart pill there. And I knew the doctor in Ohio does a smart pill before he goes further with treatment because he wants to see if your intestines are slow as well. So I asked this doctor for a smart pill and he goes, no, it's not standardized, which it is, by the way. He's like, well, I'm just gonna order you a gastric emptying scan and I'm gonna give you this new medication, which he gave me Motegrity. I actually want to try that medication because it helps with constipation, and that's the drug I'm actually still taking now, by the way. And he was like, okay, Motegrity is what I'm getting you. Here's all these tests that I'm gonna give you. Like I said, all the ones that I already had. And you're coming back here for a gastric emptying scan. I did not want to come back and repeat a test, but I was just like, whatever. We tried to ask him more questions again because he deals with gastroparesis patients, so we wanted to know more about it and see if he knew what could be causing my gastroparesis. But once again, he didn't really feel like answering. All of his answers were just, it's idiopathic, I don't know.
So once again, like, I know this sounds kind of rude and I don't expect doctors to know absolutely everything, but I was always just told, every single doctor was just like, it's idiopathic, there's nothing we can do for you, it's idiopathic, I mean, we can try to manage it, but that's the best we can do, there's nothing we can do. And I don't know, like, I just didn't want to accept that, you know, because if you don't know what's causing it, how do you know that there's nothing that you can't do, you know? Like, I just didn't want to believe that. And like I said, I didn't expect him to know everything, but he was completely dismissing me. It was kind of like degrading how he was speaking to like me and like my family members and stuff like that. And like I said, it's coming from a place when I was sick and I was desperate and I was dying and no one wanted to help me. Like, I don't know how many times that I can say that, and I just don't want to come across as rude like at all and to completely dismiss how amazing some doctors are, but like this one wasn't. And I don't know, like, I hope it's not coming across as rude and that you think that I hate the medical community. Obviously I don't. I'm going into it as like a nurse, but like, I don't know. I hope you guys understand that where I'm coming from and what I am trying to say, and that I'm not trying to be completely rude.
And I left the office and I was completely crying. My boyfriend, bless his heart, he went to find the nurse. My boyfriend explained to the nurse that I wanted the smart pill. The doctor would not listen. I wasn't there for this, but like the nurse went to the doctor and asked about the smart pill. Nurse came back and she was like, like the doctor said that he wants to do the gastric emptying scan first and the smart pill comes later. And then I was like, but I already had a gastric emptying scan. And she goes, really? You did? How long ago? And I was like 6 months ago. And she's like, oh, okay. She goes, we're going back to the office. Things are not done here. And then she took me back to the office. The nurse went to go tell the doctor, and the doctor came back and they're like, fine, if you want the smart pill, get that.
Okay, so I just wanted to say that how that happened was not that dramatic. I was clearly just hyped up about the situation. So after the nurse brought me back into the room and the doctor came back in, he was just like, okay, if the smart pill is what you want, I'll go ahead and order that for you. Like, he didn't say it in like this rude tone, so that was my bad on my part. I was just so, like I said, I was so hyped, and there's so much built up, I guess, emotions from that experience still, that I kind of just all came out here. So yeah, sorry about that.
So I made it. I ended up getting smart pill, thank goodness. Well, my boyfriend got it for me, thank goodness. He, like I said, awesome. As I was bawling, he was making it happen.
Okay, this is just perfect proof right here why you should try to find yourself an advocate, because you can't always advocate for yourself in situations like these. I was always so timid when it came to these doctor's appointments, because I held the belief that they knew best and that everything they said was correct and that there was nothing more to it. But luckily my boyfriend encouraged me more to like push for more answers and to look for more answers and to try more things and to figure out like how to fix me. Like, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have gone and done everything that I have done. So that is why you need an advocate. You need someone who is close to you and understands what you're going through and cares about you and will fight for you, because it is really hard sometimes to fight for yourself, especially when you don't feel good. Like, even when you feel good, sometimes it's hard to fight for yourself, but when you don't feel good, it's even harder. So I just hope that you guys can, I don't know, I'll find an advocate out there for you, so that way they can help you get through everything.
I made the appointment for the smart pill in November 15th of 2019. And in this meantime, I was just upset because I felt like I was dying, felt like my body was starving to death, and no one wanted to help me, and no one cared enough. No one really saw me and saw and understood what I was going through. I didn't really touch about this too much, but my mental health was not good because I was just too sick to do anything. I was just so tired all the time and just trying to make it through school because I wanted to be a nurse so bad and I wanted to make it through school, and I was just sad and upset all the time because I had no energy. I could not eat. I could hardly sleep. I was so exhausted. It was that type of exhaustion where even if you sleep, it doesn't help and you're just tired all the time. So at this point, I started working on getting an appointment with the doctor in Ohio. Luckily, I am so thankful that my parents have good insurance, good health insurance, because that's what made this process so easy for me. Like, if it wasn't for my insurance, there's no way I'd be able to get all these tests. There's no way I'd be able to go to Ohio. But I was able to.
I completely recognize my privilege with my insurance, and my heart breaks for those whose care is compromised because they don't have insurance. It definitely should not be that way. I've seen firsthand how someone isn't able to get care because of their insurance, and it just completely like upsets me and frustrates me, and I just feel like there's like, what can we do to help fix it? So I just want to say I'm sorry for everyone out there who doesn't have the privilege to do all the things that I was able to do. And I am really thankful that I was able to do everything and see the doctors I needed to and to still be financially okay. I am, once again, really sorry if the health insurance thing impacts your care that you get.
And I was able to get an appointment with the doctor in Ohio for December 19th because I had to wait until after my finals were done because I had to fly out there and I just didn't want to deal with it. I also had to wait for my smart pill to be done and for the results to come back before I went to the doctor. So I gave it a month from my smart pill, and then, like I said, I just waited until after my finals for that semester was over. And then by the time I left the doctor in October, and then in between the time until my smart pill in November, I just struggled to keep myself alive, I guess, because I couldn't eat and stuff like that. I was still working at this point too. I know I was kind of crazy, but I was still working, still doing clinicals, still doing school, still doing all of that. But I pushed through, and then I made it to my smart pill appointment. And I drove 2 hours to the clinic, and I swallowed this giant pill, so big, literally so big, but I had to eat a granola bar first. but not like just any granola bar. It's a standardized granola bar. Everybody eats the same thing. And then I can only drink like a certain amount of water. And then I take the pill. I have like a video and picture of me taking the pill. Don't make me laugh.
Okay, I will.
You're gonna make her choke on it.
It's like a drinking game.
Good?
Yep.
Okay.
It just
great.
hurts a little bit.
Just hurts a little bit.
And then I wear this receiver around my neck that coordinates with the pill, and it measures like pH and pressure, and based on that information you can tell where it is in your digestive system. So the entire time that you have the pill in you, you have to wear the receiver. So when you're in the shower, you just have to hang it like by the shower, and then when you're sleeping, obviously you don't wear it around your neck, you kind of lay it in the bed next to you or on the nightstand. And I think for me it took like 3.5 days to get out of my entire digestive system. My smart pill tests weren't anything extreme. I thought that they wouldn't think the time was that significant and that they were just going to dismiss me and think everything was okay. So after the smart pill, once again, I felt really upset because I didn't think they were going to think my condition was significant enough, even though I was only eating it once every 24 hours.
I just want to remind you that test numbers aren't everything. Go based on how you feel and what your symptoms are. My test results were nothing extreme in this case, but I felt horrible. I was doing awful. So that is just an example of like, don't always go based off your test results. Don't base your worth or your condition on what the numbers say. And especially with gastroparesis, if you have gastroparesis, you know that some days we have good and bad days, where some days it seems like our stomach's empty right away, and others it does not empty for a very long time. So just listen to yourself, listen to your body, listen to how you feel, and don't get caught up in the test numbers.
Ended up getting the results like a couple days before I had to leave for Ohio. My colon was still in the normal range, but it was slow. Like, I can't remember my exact times, but it was in there for quite a while, longer than normal for someone my age. And then it was in my small intestine for longer than normal. My stomach showed it was slow as well. So my whole digestive system was kind of slow. And I was like, well, this sucks, because why is my whole GI system slow? Like, after the smart pill, I started trying to take 2 new medications. The Motegrity, which I was talking about before. I started taking Motegrity 1 milligram. That turned me the complete opposite end. I was no longer constipated, but I was, let's just say, it went to the complete opposite. And after a week, I had to stop it because I was not eating much and everything was just coming straight out. As a nurse, like, I knew if you have diarrhea for a while, it can throw off your electrolytes, and I was also not eating. I knew that because I was not eating well, and diarrhea in itself, if you have it prolonged, can throw off your electrolytes, so I stopped that. I also tried another drug called mirtazapine, which is, I think, is an antidepressant or anti-anxiety, but it's supposed to have the side effect of increasing your appetite. So they gave me that, tried that, did not increase my appetite, so I went off of that as well. So I was on no medications except for Zofran right now. Zofran is what helped me. I forgot to mention Zofran. I can't believe I made it through this far and didn't mention Zofran, but Zofran is what helped me make it through those big nausea days. Oh my god, I completely forgot to mention like all the small things that I used. So I was someone who didn't want to use Zofran a lot.
Okay, so I'm not trying to say that if you want to take like pharmacological interventions first, like, that's not bad. I don't know, for me it was just like a personal preference that if I thought I could do more like natural things, I guess, first, like ginger or wristbands and stuff like that, I'd rather take that first than having to rely on Zofran. That was just my personal preference, but do whatever helps you the best. So I just wanted to explain that, and just like I said, this medical stuff, it's all on an individual basis, but I just wanted to share what I personally did just in case it helped anyone out there. I'm not telling you to do anything, just do what is best for you, okay? Okay.
I tried a lot of other stuff before going to the Zofran. So I wore those seasickness bands that have like the pressure point right here. Those helped. I also ate ginger chews like crazy. I'm not even kidding you. Like, I ate ginger chews probably like 10 a day. And then I would also have ginger gum. That I noticed a huge difference with ginger gum as well. I drink tea. I would also use a heating pad for the bloating. It didn't necessarily bring down the bloating, but it helped with the discomfort of the bloating. So heating pad, and then also I used some like essential oils as well, just to help with nausea as well. Sometimes it helped, sometimes it didn't, but like I said, I was just willing to try anything. I forgot what I was on the topic of. This is all chaotic. I am so sorry if it's hard to follow around or hard to follow along because like I said, it's just, there's so many things happening at once. So I'm just trying my best here to explain everything. But anyways, I think what I was saying was like I did a smart pill, results came back that my intestines and stomach was slow, but it wasn't super slow, I guess you could say. Oh, I think what I was saying before is I started the new medications. Yes, so I started the new medications, didn't work or had bad side effects, so I stopped and I was only on Zofran at this point and the natural remedies. So finals week came. What happens this upcoming like week in the story I'm going to tell you, this is a huge like turning point in my health. I'm not going to say I almost died, but like if I didn't get treatment, I could have. That's a whole different story in itself that I will probably explain at some point if you guys want to know. But I will probably share it as well because I want people to understand the dangers of what happens when you don't eat and you are really sick. But finals week comes and this is my fall semester of my senior year and finals week starts on Monday. And I think Monday night is when I have my last meal. And you'll understand what that means, but I eat Monday night. And then for some reason, I just don't get hungry, like again. And this was a very big week for me because I had finals Monday, I had finals Wednesday, and I left Wednesday night to go to the airport and fly to Ohio for my appointment on Thursday morning. And then on Thursday night, I flew back to Florida. So I needed to have my nausea as controlled as it can be to get through this week. So Monday night, I ate. Then I never got hungry again. And I was nauseous. I was so nauseous. But I'm like, I have to make it through. So I did not eat the next 4 days. Did not eat Tuesday. I did not eat Wednesday. So Wednesday came. I took my final. Right after my final, came home, grabbed my stuff. We went to the airport. And then we flew out that night. And then Wednesday night, we obviously got a hotel. We slept at the hotel, and then the next morning, so Thursday, my doctor's appointment, still have not eaten. From Monday night until like Friday midday, all I ate probably was like 4 saltine crackers. That's all I could eat because I was like not hungry, I was nauseous, and I'm like, I need to make it through this point until I get back to Florida. Thursday morning, we get to my doctor's appointment. This doctor's appointment went amazing, better than I expected. And I was so nervous because I'm like, oh my God, we are flying from Florida to Ohio and this is like my last chance. I knew this was my last chance to be okay. And I was nervous and I was hopeful and I was just hoping everything would go well. And it did. This doctor listened to everything that I had to say. He listened to all of my questions, all my boyfriend's questions. He answered them. He encouraged more questions. And he had a set plan of care for me and he was determined to help me get better. And I was like, oh my God, this is awesome because at this point I was not eating and I was at a new low weight, like the lowest weight at this point that I've ever been. And I was starting to get nervous because I felt like I was dying. Like I literally felt like I was dying. My body was wasting away and I was so scared. And I just, like I said, I felt like no doctor cared about me or understood how bad and what I was going through. But he cared, like this doctor cared. I could tell that he knew how serious my situation was. And he came up with a treatment plan and the treatment plan started with getting a lot of blood work. He wanted to see if what was causing my slow digestive system was autoimmune. So, and that was all the blood work that he did. He ordered like 20 different types of blood work. And if it was discovered to be autoimmune, then I would go down the route of IVIG. And if it was not autoimmune, then I would have a surgery called the GPOEM or POP procedure. And so I flew home that night. I tried to get the blood work done at the lab at the hospital that he was at, but my insurance didn't cover it. So I had to just come home and do the blood work here. Friday morning, like I said, I'm just gonna keep this next part brief. Friday morning, I woke up and I sat up and I was just so nauseous. Like really, really, really badly nauseous. Worse than I've ever been before. And I started taking all of my meds. I took Zofran, did my wristbands, essential oils, ginger gum, whatever. But I was like, holy crap, nope, this time I'm gonna throw up. This is the time that I'm actually gonna throw up. And I started to panic because if I throw up, I know something is wrong. Because like I said multiple times, I have an aversion to it. So if I throw up, I know that means something for real is wrong and that I need to go to the hospital because I just know. So I got out of bed, I ran to the bathroom and I kneeled down and I immediately started dry heaving. And there were tears running down my eyes and I was just so scared. I obviously did not throw up because I had not eaten since Monday, so there was nothing to throw up. But the dry heaving, oh, that hurt so bad. Oh my God, like my throat hurt, my stomach hurt. And I think I dry heaved like 3-4 times and I was just crying, I was shaking, I was weak. I just felt like I was dying right there on the floor. And then I went to the ER and long story short, my labs showed that I was malnourished, I was acidotic. They told me I was going into starvation ketosis and they admitted me, obviously. Oh, the biggest thing, I was hypoglycemic. So my blood sugar was low. At the time I got to the hospital and they took my blood, it was 48. But I didn't know that. I didn't know my blood sugar was low. They, I guess, didn't know that. So I sat for 2 hours waiting for a room with a blood sugar of 48. So I don't know at this point how low it dropped, because as soon as they brought me back, they started running dextrose, which is fluid with sugar, and they made me drink orange juice. That was the first food I had since Monday. After that, though, I honestly remember starting to feel a little bit less nauseous and a little bit more awake, because I didn't realize that the nausea and the fatigue that I was feeling was because my blood sugar was super, super low. I ended up staying in the hospital for a week and I got a feeding tube. They placed a feeding tube up my nose, down into my intestines. I was awake for that. Oh my God, that was so bad. I hated that experience. And then they started me on feeds. Once that was all dealt with, I went home. Oh, and they took all the blood work that I needed, that the doctor ordered from Ohio ordered. They took that at the hospital, so I was just waiting for that to come back, and I went home. So I went home in a feeding tube, and then I was waiting on the blood work. Once the blood work came back, I sent that to the doctor in Ohio and waited for his response on what to do. And then this all happened, like I said, in December, and I had the feeding tube until the beginning of January. And I called someone at my school to let them know I had a feeding tube, and they told me I could not do clinicals with a feeding tube, which is understandable. So I had to get it taken out. So I went to the GI here and had them take it out for me. And now I was left with no nutrition, no medications, no plan of care yet, because I was still waiting to hear back about my blood work. So I was not doing well. I eventually, like I said, I want to make a separate video on my whole hospital experience, because like some other stuff happened throughout the hospital, and then along with that talk about my experience with like the feeding tube, but that would just be way too much detail. This video is gonna be way too long anyways. Like I said, so at this point I have nothing, no medications, nothing. And I'm back at school, my final semester. This is my final semester of nursing school, of college, of my bachelor's degree. I'm almost there. And then I get my blood work results back and they tell me that it's not autoimmune. So after I found that out, I made my appointment to get surgery. The doctor that I went to was at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. There's also a Cleveland Clinic in Weston, and we decided to go ahead and do the surgery in Weston because it's just easier to manage, because we could drive there instead of dealing with the whole flight situation, and because I'd have to get the surgery while I was still in school. So it's just easier if I get it done in Weston. So we went ahead and got the surgery scheduled on February 18th of 2020. Because of that date, you can tell we are almost to the end, because it is April, the end of April when I'm filming this. So just bear with me, we're almost there. So I went to go see the surgeons in January. At this point, I also pretty much, I guess, started starving to death again, because I was just so nauseous and could not eat again. And I was just continuing to lose weight, scary amount of weight. And I went to go see the surgeons. I saw them in January, but I could not schedule my surgery obviously until February 18th. And so I had a month, and that month was so long. I was not fueling my body, and I was putting myself through school. I was putting myself through 12, 13-hour shifts. I was so weak, so weak. I was tired, I was nauseous, everything. It was just absolutely miserable, but I tried so hard to eat. I remember at this point I was like, I need to make it, because I was so determined to make it through nursing school. I wanted to graduate on time and make it through nursing school. And so I was forcing myself to eat and just push through the nausea and bloating, stuff like that. And I made it. just in time to that surgery. I don't know how much longer I could have gone, but I made it.
Okay, so that is going to be the end of part 2 of my gastroparesis story. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it. And stay tuned for Wednesday to watch part 3, which is the last part. And once again, in the next video, I will be talking about my surgery and how I am doing today. And then I'm also going to get my boyfriend's thoughts and opinions on what I went through and about gastroparesis and stuff like that. So leave any comments or questions down below. I will answer them to the best of my ability, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!